No, you heard that right. Here we go. Because let's face it, you can't really have a party without a little bit of LCD sound system.
Yeah, I'm losing my edge.
And this is every teacher's nightmare.
I'm losing my edge.
It's what we worry about.
The kids are coming up from behind. I'm losing my edge. I'm losing my edge. To the kids.
Oh, LCD sound system. Apparently they're making a comeback. Who knows what to make of that? But let's instead make some things of parties. What can we say about parties? If we're talking about parties, we need to have a few clear ideas in our heads. We're going to talk about membership. We're going to talk about ideology. We're going to talk about policies. We're going to talk about resources. We're going to talk about the contesting elections. These are all features that we would associate with parties. We can go into that in a little more detail. And I'm going to turn up the LCD again.
Footsteps. I hear when they get on the decks. I'm losing my edge. The internet. Seekers.
This is our working definition of political parties. They are organizations with, as it says, a formal and structured membership. The structure thing is important. That means there's a hierarchy. That means there's leadership. There are chiefs and there are Indians, if that's not politically incorrect. Or, as I've been discussing in various other classes, you're going to have a leadership, you're going to have an officer class, and you're going to have the grassroots members. That's probably the best way to look at it, just that three-tiered structure. Leaders, officer class, and grassroots membership. There should be some sort of ideological consistency underpinning everything that's going on. That's the way it should be. Sorry, I'll turn that down. There's some sort of ideological consistency underpinning it all. And you take that ideological consistency, and from that you try to generate a broad-based policy platform that will incorporate local and specific issues, as well as national and wider considerations. And the key point here is to contrast that, and I'll talk about that a little later, with pressure groups. In the pressure groups, they don't have that broad-based policy platform. They will have specific ideas that they want to communicate, and those specific ideas may be broad or general, but it's very, very definitely not a broad-based policy platform embracing such a wide diversity of interests. Having established that these are things that parties would normally have, we then say, well, what do we do? Well, they provide coordination and resources for that particular membership. And particularly, they seek to impose those political beliefs on public policy through the contesting of elections. And again, we can contrast that with pressure groups. In that pressure groups, and this is a critical point, do not contest elections. They might seek to influence public policy, but they do not contest elections. So, what is it then that parties do? Well, the short answer is that parties expedite the democratic process. And if you don't know what expedite means, you can look it up now. Okay, hopefully you've looked up expedite, so let's explain what this means. We can look at this in two ways. We can look at them expediting democratic participation. That is, they encourage civil engagement. That is, what do we as punters do in our particular political society? And that can either be active or passive, and I'll explain exactly what that means in a minute. And in terms of democratic participation, they also they take a key role in the organization and management of elections, and that's absolutely critical. I go into all of these in much more detail in the next slide, so don't sweat it. Democratic government, they also expedite the process of democratic government, and again I've divided that into two. I look at it in terms of representative government, and here we talk about the party system, and I also talk about parliamentary government, and here we're looking at the adversarial system. Now all of these apply all the time, so let's drill into them in a little bit more detail. So we're going to start with democratic participation, and here we look at civil engagement, and of course the other part is contesting elections, but let's look at civil engagement first. So I said we're going to be active and passive. Active means you getting involved, you putting your time to political use, and the key thing here is that parties provide a mechanism for you to do that. This is how you get engaged in politics. You can join a party, and they will find plenty of things for you to do, and those of you who have joined parties will know this. Those of you who spent any time working in the political context, you'll know that joining a party, you can organize, manage campaigns, elections, anything you want, really, to whatever extent you don't want to do it, it's rather up to you. But obviously, they're going to be very, very keen for you to get heavily involved. So parties exist for you to put your time, or to help you to put your time to political use. And then there's also a sense in which they help other people. So this is not so much about you, but helping other people who are otherwise remaining passive. Those people are outside this particular system. It's about you going out and giving them a kick. So parties exist to educate and inform other people. It's not just the people within the party who are benefiting. There's that sense in which they seek to influence the passive members of society. They seek to educate and inform them. And they do that through media campaigns, through their manifestos, and from doorstepping, which is banging on doors. So civil engagement, both the person themselves getting involved and thereby by those actions encouraging other people to get involved. You could call those direct if you like, and indirect, it doesn't matter, but the key point is that they provide a means for you to get involved and for you to try to engage others, and that's a key part of the party process. When it comes to elections, I've also broken that down into two. I've talked about organizing elections, that is mobilizing the electorate. Go out and vote, or get out and vote. That was a big part. They tried to mobilize, again, not just the members themselves, but also other people to go out and vote. And they're also there to inform the debate. They're there to inform the debate, to put across the party line, to promote the party manifesto. Also, there's the actual contesting of it itself, the recruiting and the presenting of candidates and the running of campaigns. I think that's all pretty straightforward. The one thing that I haven't mentioned in any of this, which is of course critically important, is money. It's all about raising money, spending money in a political cause. So all of that, very important indeed. So that's the parties and democratic participation. Let's have a look at the parties and democratic government. Again, as I said, I've divided it into two. We're going to start with representative government here. We can talk about the party system, the way in which the political parties exist to aggregate ideas, to aggregate opinions and ideas. And again, here I said this is where they contrast with pressure groups who are not interested in aggregation. They simply are interested in articulation. So even if the Countryside Alliance represents a wide raft of ideas, they're not going to be particularly interested in education, whereas a political party has got to have a point of view on the countryside and education and all of these other things. It's one of the areas where the Green Party came unstuck recently, in that they had a very clear idea on the environment, but then they had to start tacking on various other policies. UKIP, another one, they were primarily just anti-Europe, and then suddenly they had to start building a policy platform off the back of these other ideas. And obviously the further you get away from the core competence of these glorified pressure groups, let's call them what they are, then their policies become increasingly ragged around the edges. However, your established parties, even the Liberal Democrats, will have a more or less coherent policy platform that stretches across a wide range of issues, and seeking to aggregate education policies. Aggregate, essentially reconcile education policies with health policies, with spending policies, with agricultural policies, all of these things. These are things pressure groups don't have to worry about, but you can't have a political party where one policy points in one direction and another policy points in a completely different direction, which is pretty much where the Labour Party is at the minute, let's be frank. So again, we can contrast that with pressure groups. And then there's also a conduit between the representatives and the represented, and it's a way in which people can get in touch with their representatives, and it also reduces choice to a manageable lesson, and it's a vehicle of civil opposition. So all of these are really important. I think perhaps when I do this again, the vehicle of civil opposition should really go in there, because it's a way in which those who feel not represented by the political regime can seek a voice through opposition parties. But there you go. Democratic government, we subdivide that into representative government, and we can see there how the party system exists to serve the punter. Let's move across and have a look at parliamentary government. Well, as we've discussed elsewhere, we have an adversarial system. We have a government and an opposition, and the parties provide those adversaries. The parties provide the opposition and the government, and that makes for more effective government and more effective opposition. If you've got two blocks standing off against each other in an adversarial system, it's going to work much better than if you've got a huge selection of people and you're having to build coalitions and so on. It's really to do with this it's really to do with the nature of our adversarial system and the way in which it works best when you've got two parties standing off against each other. Of course, if you're running a consensus system, as we have in Northern Ireland, as we have in Scotland, then parties again work, because these are the organisations that get together and discuss and barter and trade and build towards compromise and consensus. So whether you're running an adversarial system, as we are in the Westminster model, or if you're running a consensus system, as we are in Scotland and Wales, and indeed in Europe, the job of parties there is to get along and basically either defeat the opposition in an adversarial system, or if you're running a consensus system, to do the wheeling and dealing that will essentially bring us towards some form of consistent national policy. Pretty straightforward, I think, but then I would say that because I've been looking at this for hundreds and hundreds of years. Let's talk a little bit about party systems. This is something that comes up from time to time, and this is where we see the politics scene being dominated by parties rather than by individuals. Now, we do have some individuals in the UK who think they're bigger than the party, David Davis being one, but as soon as they sort of move out of the mainstream, we see them being increasingly marginalised. There are very, very few truly independent MPs in the UK because we tend to vote party first and individual second. So here we have the sense that parties are I suppose the best way of looking at a party system is to say that the whole is so much greater than the sum of the parts. And so the parties are bound by this discipline and common ideology, and the elections are contested by candidates standing for published party policies on behalf of that particular party. So you're electing somebody as the Conservative Party candidate or the Labour Party candidate for whatever particular manifesto you're in. Constituency you're in. And of course, this runs headfirst into Burkean representation, which is all about judgment of the representative versus the party platform. This is pretty complicated. I make no apology for that. This is fairly complicated, but hopefully we'll be able to discuss it a little bit in class. So just before we finish, let's pause a little bit to talk about left wing and right wing. The left wing says left wing is this political school which says the government can and therefore should engineer a better society. So we're moving towards a better society. What that better society looks like is rather up to you. It might be a fairer society. It might be a centre of social democracy. It probably employ a bit of Keynesian economics, that is, tax and spend. And ideally, you would be using all of those to reduce unemployment. So that's generally your left wing, that you are trying to build or engineer a fairer society. You'll probably be using nationalisation and other such items. The right-wing policies, on the other hand, say that individuals and only individuals can improve themselves. No government can change anything except through individuals. So if you improve individuals, then the individuals will be able to bring about the improvement that you want. If the government tries to engineer it, no matter how competent they are, no matter how well-intentioned they are, they're going to screw it up. So instead, what the right-wing government will seek to do is to promote a strong and stable society, so that people can make rational decisions about their future. It would normally embrace capitalism, that is low tax and low government spending and a low inflation model. And we're pretty much there. We've got low inflation. We'll probably have some privatization. We've got some LCD Soundsystem back because we are almost done on this particular idea of parties. And coming up next is going to be parties in the UK, which means that the title of this song, North American Scum, is a little bit inappropriate. But I'll let them play me out.
Where to begin? We are North Americans, and for those of you who still think we're from England, we're not. No. We've been on planes and on trains till we think we might die. Far from North America, where the buildings are old and you might have lots of minds. I hate the feeling when you're looking at me that way, 'cause we're North Americans, but if we act all shy, it'll make it okay, makes it go away. I don't know where to begin when we're North American, but in the end make the same mistakes all over